Why is the White House's line that everybody has the right to peacefully protest and not the U.S. thinks it's bad to lock people up in their houses to stop COVID?
We've made it clear, Peter, that a lockdown is not a policy that we're going to support here. But obviously there are people in China that have concerns about that, and they're protesting that, and we believe they should be able to do that peacefully.
That was National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby yesterday, supporting Chinese protesters in their ongoing fight against lockdowns, or appearing to. Not forcefully condemning the zero COVID policies causing the issues in the first place, though. Joining me right now is Florida Congressman, member of the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Michael Waltz is here. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
Thanks,
Look, we really haven't heard much from the Biden administration supporting the people on the ground. They're not just protesting the lockdowns, which of course are incredible, but they're also protesting totalitarianism and this communist rule. They say down with Xi Jinping. How serious are these protests? Do you think this actually could have an impact on the Communist Party of China?
Well, I think it's pretty incredible, Maria, that the images are getting out at all past China's Great Firewall, so that we're actually seeing what's going on. Now, how far will this spread, and when will Xi crack down like they did in Tiananmen Square, I think remains to be seen. This is much broader. Obviously, Tiananmen Square was centralized in one location in Beijing. This is much broader, much more widespread. I think there's a lot more behind this than just the COVID lockdown that has turned to be a boiling point. But we absolutely, from the podium of the President of the United States, should be saying we stand with you. We support your fight for freedom. As the leader of the free world, of course, we stand with you and your values. But I think what's underlying this kind of tepid, weak, flaccid response from the White House are a couple of things. I'm sure their buddies in big tech have reached out to them and said, tone it down. Remember, Biden just met with Xi and wants to reach this kind of rapprochement over climate and other issues. And then finally, we just continue to see this awful response when it comes to human rights around the world. We're seeing it when it comes to women in Iran, women in Afghanistan, Venezuela, Cuba. This administration has the worst record on human rights of any modern president. And we're seeing it time and time again. And frankly, it's disgusting.
Well, it really is. But you know that if Joe Biden got involved and tried to side with the people of China, his Chinese overlords would be upset. And who knows how they would react to Joe Biden. So we haven't heard that. Meanwhile, the Chinese government is being accused of flooding Twitter with spam and porn. They've got pornographic images to manipulate the searches on the protests. We've got a story yesterday from the New York Post. It says Chinese bots are swamping Twitter with sexually explicit posts about porn and escorts in an apparent bid to stop the spread of news about Xi Jinping and how the people want him to step down. Then there's the recent Apple software update, also restricting airdrop file sharing in China. Protesters were using that feature to share information on the demonstrations in Hong Kong. Talk to us about that. Jagan and I were just getting into it on the air about the enablers of China's Communist Party right here in corporate America, and how there were enablers during Nazi Germany, and there are enablers once again here funding the expansion of Chinese communism. Apple implemented the latest iOS update, replacing the everyone option for an airdrop with a function that only allows it to work for 10 minutes. Now, do we know that Apple did this on its own, or were they asked to do this by Chinese authorities? Because in 2019, airdrop was used by young Hong Kong activists to send unsolicited messages inviting the public to join anti-government protests. They can't do that this time.
Yeah, Maria, on Twitter, I would like to see Elon take a hard look at the algorithms. He's been at war with the bots that are all over Twitter, but the Chinese Communist Party bots that are spreading their propaganda all over the world, I'd really like to see him focus on those and take those down. Remember, the Chinese people can't see Twitter, but the Chinese government then uses it to spread its propaganda. On Apple, look, it's absolutely disgusting. Tim Cook is an apologist for a dictatorship. I hope at some point he is held to account for that. But at this point, all his eggs are in the CCP's basket. If you look at the protests that are happening at the Foxconn factory, I mean, Apple just in the next few months stands to lose millions and millions of iPhones. Their stock is down. And I think he's going to say or do whatever it takes on the backs of these poor people. And at the end of the day, he shares responsibility. He's culpable, and the blood is on his hands. And we need to absolutely look in Congress to hold these big tech CEOs responsible. And I am sick and tired of their hypocrisy when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to ESG and all of the other issues that they're preaching here at home, yet hypocritically turning a blind eye to the largest mass incarceration in Western China since the Holocaust. So you're absolutely right to make those analogies, and we need to very publicly and forcefully call them to task.
Well, I mean, look, I think we should get an answer. Why did Apple implement this 10-minute limit for Chinese users of AirDrop? Okay, why put this wireless file transfer function to a limit of 10 minutes in a move that would stymie the ability, limit the ability of iPhone users in China to circumvent Beijing's censorship controls? I don't understand. Why would Apple put this in place right now?
And they only did it. They only made that update for iPhones purchased in mainland China, and they just did it in the last few days and weeks as these protests were building. So it smells awful. We don't know for sure, but we do know that they did it when it came to Hong Kong, and we have seen freedom completely snuffed out there. And we know that they took the Taiwan flag out of their emoji selection. So we continue to see Apple and Tim Cook bow down to a brutal, repressive, dictatorial regime because they very stupidly and naively, in my view, and cold-heartedly put all of their supply chain into mainland China, and it's going to take them a long time to get it out. I've given up for national security reasons or corporate patriotism, but hopefully out of their own self-preservation, they'll start getting their supply chains out of there and stop this pathetic, disgusting bowing down to a dictatorship.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. Why is big tech so afraid of freedom and liberty? Honestly, I mean, look, censoring the Hunter Biden story right before the 2020 election, putting a limit on AirDrop features in China as the protesters gather. What's wrong with transparency and this pushing back on Elon Musk the way they are? It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. And now threatening to deplatform Twitter, like they have other accounts like Parler and other types of apps. So this is, and the collusion that we're seeing between big tech and this White House when it comes to misinformation and control and censorship is something we're going to get after in a Republican-led Congress. We are going to have a select committee on China that I hope to be a part of. We have to take much more bold action. And once again, this is a place where Congress is going to have to step in because this White House is completely sold out. And what doesn't make sense is they list the Chinese Communist Party as their greatest adversary in our national defense strategy. Yeah. So it's completely discordant. But what I'm convinced is at the bottom of it is this climate religion. And the Chinese Communist Party could care less. They're opening more coal factories than the rest of the world combined. But yet we're seeing them sell out our national security and our freedom and the Chinese people's freedom, at the altar of climate.
That's right. Well, we'll keep watching that. You're right.